covering the Utes better than anyone else. This is Ute Insider Steve Bartle of KSLSports.com on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
The Cut's brought to you by Trajan Wealth. Give them a call today, your local financial fiduciary, 801-899-7600, or visit their website at TrajanWealth.com. Coming to us live from Las Vegas. Viva Las Vegas, baby. It's Steve Bartle on JJ and Alex. Steve, how's Vegas treating you?
Man, it's treating me pretty good, JJ. It's been a good time down here.
Awesome.
So, Steve, what's on the must-eat list while you're down there?
The must-eat list?
Yeah.
Ooh, I don't know. I don't know. Whatever pulls up the best rating around it. I don't know.
I might recommend. Have you been to Din Tai Fung? Have you been to Din Tai Fung?
Oh
like
yeah,
I have.
Kidder loves Din Tai Fung.
Yeah.
Delightful.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes,
We could turn this into a food show
I know.
if you're not careful.
I'm just saying.
I got Vegas spots too.
Because Vegas has got everything. But
Yes, they do.
I wonder if Steve had a certain spot he's going to hit. Hey, Steve, give us your vibe coming out of the – it was like a lunch/press conference today with both teams down there in Vegas. Just give us the vibe of how you feel about Utah as they head into this game tomorrow afternoon.
Yeah, it was kind of an interesting opportunity. It was a media availability, sort of the press conference for the bowl game, and we had the opportunity to hear from Morgan Scalley, Devin Dampier, and Lander Barton from Utah side, and then also Matt Rule and a couple of their players as well. And with Morgan getting a first look at him, it was it was interesting to hear what he had to say, and it was sort of a refreshing experience listening to Morgan talk about the game. And you've just become so accustomed to how Kyle Whittingham responds to things. You could almost like have quotes almost typed up before he said it, and then obviously as he's saying it, you're correcting yourself, but you almost have these templates of responses from Kyle Whittingham. And so to hear from Scalley today, it was just kind of refreshing in a lot of ways. And so he's talked about needing to set the culture and needing to send these seniors out on a high note and finish the season on the high note. And that was echoed by both Dev and Lander, that, they have a goal to finish the season on a win. And so I think that's the mindset of the team as they prepare for the bowl game tomorrow. But, it's been interesting. There's been a lot of talk about a new energy, with Morgan Scalley at the helm, that's going to be something that we see. And so, there certainly seems to be a pretty upbeat vibe around the team right now.
Well, that's refreshing because, look, we all know where bowl games are at right now in 2025, 2026. They're not what they used to be. And the guys are sitting out, guys that are going to league or whatever. And we remember what happened in Vegas 2 years ago. That was a colossal waste of time. It sucked, right? Do you get the vibe that this team is wanting to be there? They want to play in this game. They want to win this game. Do you expect Utah to bring their best on Wednesday?
I mean, define best, right, in this type of game. Obviously I think we know what bowl games are, and I think that's just going to have, an impact on how teams play. Yeah. This is not going to be their best performance of the season where they come out and are sharp and playing at a really intense level. I don't think it's going to be that type of game, but I do think, the guys and the team that they do want to win this game. And so that's going to, it's going to come down to, as Morgan Scalley said, it's going to come down to who plays the best in the trenches. Cause that's really, when you talk about the groups that really want to win a game, you gotta really want to win a game when you're talking about the guys in the trenches to put your body through that, for one last time this season. You're just starting to, there's just a lot of, things that you consider, but I think this team is pretty determined to get the win. And there's certainly that type of energy and feel from this squad down here.
You talk about trench play, and we know that, correct me if I'm wrong here, neither of the Fanos are playing, both Logan and Spencer. Caleb Lomu is sitting out as well, as I understand it, Steve, and obviously John Henry Daly, now since he's going to the portal day, he was already out. So just give us a sense of what Utah should look like in the trenches with some of those standout guys along both fronts not playing in this game.
Yeah, there's going to be, some new faces in a couple of key spots for Utah. It's been interesting. I think, most players should be available for this one. I think even Ryan Davis is going to be back and playing. Perhaps even Nate Ritchie as well. Utah getting those guys back after pretty significant injuries. But when talking about how Utah is going to replace, what they've got at those two end spots on both sides of the line, I think we're going to see a guy like Zeroy Williams step up at left tackle. We'll see, one of Keith Olsen or Alex Harrison or Solotoa Moyai or one of those guys at right tackle. And then on the other side, you're probably going to see Lance Holsclaw and Cash Dillon. You're going to see those guys man those edge positions. Outside of that, I think Utah, it's going to be a pretty familiar lineup the rest of the way, throughout the rest of the roster. And so I think, again, which just sort of kind of speaks to, Utah's mindset. They've got this group together. They've been healthy, and I think it sort of all leads to this team again wanting to go out on a win tomorrow.
Well, the most intriguing storylines take place off the field for Utah right now, and I wish that wasn't the case, but it just is. The news that John Henry Daly is jumping into the transfer portal. What do you know about that situation, and what are your expectations how that's going to end up?
Yeah, I know. I think that's an interesting one with John Henry Daly. Obviously, he had a great season this year, was among the best, edge defenders, pass rushers in the country this year, finished with 11.5 sacks and 40-something, nearly 50 tackles for loss. He proved to be a playmaker. And I think for him, what sucks is his injury and what he suffered, in that game against Kansas State. It's a significant injury, and it's one that he's going to have to prove that he's right. And so, for Henry Daly, he's obviously, when you have that sort of production as a pass rusher, that comes with a pretty handsome reward when you're talking about the transfer portal and NIL and what these guys are able to make now. For him, he's going to be looking probably for a pretty handsome payday, right? And for Utah, you've sort of been in this situation before where, you have a great player that suffers an injury in one of the final games of the season. And, as optimistic as you want to be with their recovery and when they can start to play, when you have a significant injury like the one Henry Daly and referring back to Cam Rising, the injury that those guys had were pretty significant. And so I think, there's a little bit of caution there from Utah's perspective, but, JHD, I think, is a tremendous player and that's sort of where we're at with that situation. And I think he's certainly worthy of an opportunity to go into the transfer portal and look for, that type of payday because, he's just proved to be one of the top pass rushers in the country this season.
All right, Steve, I got to ask you, when you saw Kyle Whittingham wearing a Michigan hat and saying "Go Blue" the other day, how surreal was it?
Oh, it was super surreal. I mean, it was just, I still can't wrap my head around it that Kyle Whittingham is going to be, patrolling the sidelines, at the Big House, really. Yeah. It's not just another stadium, it's the Big House. And that's the type of job that I think Kyle Whittingham, I think he's put himself in this situation. He's proven to be a good coach. I think this is the type of situation where everybody's going to be curious about how he actually does at Michigan, right? What type of success is he going to lead that program to? It's just kind of surreal to think about, but certainly it'll add some additional storylines for Utah fans and people in the state to follow next year, because I think everybody's interested in seeing what that program looks like, what that staff looks like, and what he can do in Ann Arbor, where the expectations are national championships, right? Like that's the goal, that's the task. And how does he actually do? Everybody's said that he's a great coach that's just lacked the resources, and he'll have a chance to prove those people right.
Obviously, Kyle Whittingham going to Ann Arbor creates a situation where it's likely he's taking some coaches and potentially players with him. What are you hearing right now? What are your expectations when it comes to staff members at Utah that could be on their way out, headed to Ann Arbor or elsewhere?
Yeah, I think what's interesting is Jay Hill, is maybe the most likely as of right now. With Utah and Jason Beck, he's been considered the top target for Kyle Whittingham, and to bring him over because that just that brings so much familiarity. Jim Harding is another guy that is considered to be following Kyle Whittingham to Michigan, but I know that Jim has some options on the table that he may not necessarily leave for Michigan. So there's a lot of potential here, right? And I think the big one for Utah is obviously Jason Beck. And just given the success you had this season, the potential to bring back a lot of pieces from the offense this year with Jason Beck at the helm. There's been a big push from Morgan Scalley and Utah to keep Jason Beck in place. That's continued into today, those conversations from what I've been told and what I've heard. And, we'll continue to kind of follow that and monitor it. If you're Kyle Whittingham, you certainly want to have things kind of crystallized by, the conclusion of their bowl game and have stuff ready to go. And it seems like, they've got a pretty good sense of who those guys could be, but Utah and BYU, they're making it tough on Kyle Whittingham. From what I've heard, they're making it very difficult to just kind of call it official that Beck and Jay Hill are going to Ann Arbor. I think these programs are putting up a pretty significant fight, and I think that says a lot about the commitment to Utah football and to BYU football, and the sudden resources that these programs have and the passion that these programs have for football. I think it says a lot that they're trying to go toe to toe, with one of the top 5 most recognizable programs in the country, in the world. When you're talking about that Michigan Wolverine helmet. And so I think it's fascinating what could actually transpire over the next couple of days. Because again, like I said, Whittingham probably wants to have a pretty good idea of what his staff is going to look like, so they have something ready to go the day after and start attacking the transfer portal later this week.
Interesting.
Now, Steve, associated with coaching the carousel, the shuffle that we all are kind of monitoring here, is obviously player personnel. And the portal opens up on Friday formally. Do you have an idea, or at least do you have like a short list of like positions you think Utah will be attacking, or is it just really too hard to determine that considering how much change there could be?
Yeah, I think a lot will be determined by, who actually ends up going in the portal. But, one position that I think, a couple positions that come to mind that were already priorities and only are going to become bigger probably is offensive line. That's going to be a big priority for Utah in the transfer portal. I know that they'd love to go into the tight end market and look to bring in, a Dallin Bentley type of big body guy. And then defensive end, Logan Fano announcing that, he's going to leave with a year of eligibility remaining. And then Henry Daly obviously announcing his entry into the portal. You already kind of, with his injury, you already kind of marked him off of 2026, which kind of made it a thing. But, with that and Logan, and then those are probably the top 3 positions right now. But again, a lot hinges on what staff end up following Kyle Whittingham to Ann Arbor, because that can certainly change some things as well. But as of now, those are the top positions that they'll look into the portal to address. And then it all just kind of depends on what ends up being, who ends up staying on staff and who ends up following and what that could lead to in terms of other players that follow their coaches to Michigan.
It'll be interesting. The portal opens up on Friday, but before that, they've got this bowl game. And one last question for you, Steve, before we cut you loose. I wanted to get your thoughts on Morgan Scalley. We're going to see him in his first game as head coach on Wednesday. I'm curious what you think is going to be the difference in the program with Morgan as opposed to Kyle. Obviously, they do a lot of the similar. They've been tied at the hip for a long time, but now Morgan Scalley gets to put his stamp on this program and do things his way. What can that look like? What do you think? What differences could we see in this program in this transition?
Yeah, I think internally, where we as outsiders may not get a look at it and what it's going to lead to, but I think the difference really for the program, going from Kyle Whittingham, who obviously is a legend and he's going to have the power and the resources to do what he needs to and operate how he wants to. And you get to his point in his career and you kind of become more of a CEO and you delegate and you allow others to take care of certain responsibilities and you're kind of almost hands off, and so for Morgan, I think what this will lead to is, with him and where he's at his age, 46 years, and just knowing the type of person that he is and how his work ethic and the personality that he has, I think you're going to see, a head coach that's more energetic, more involved in the day-to-day, the daily type of stuff. Probably going to lead to less delegation. Obviously, he's going to rely on others to do things, but I think his energy is going to be the thing that I think leads to the most obvious to us in terms of the differences that we see, with Scalley, how he'll coach. Lander Barton talked about that he's going to look a little bit more energetic than Kyle Whittingham did patrolling the sidelines. There's going to be a little bit more energy. And so I think that's going to be the biggest difference that we see is just a more energetic coach, on the sideline. And it'll be interesting to hear his first, game, pregame speech and what that sounds like. Kyle always had certain things that he would always say. But with Morgan, I think there's just a lot of excitement about the energy that he's brought, the organization that he's going to, have and how he'll operate. But I think that's going to be kind of the most interesting dynamics that we follow with how the program changes and evolves under Scalley.
He's Steve Bartle, Utah Utes insider for KSL Sports, KSLSports.com. It's going to be an interesting week up on the hill, both on the field and off the field. Buckle up. Steve Bartle's got you covered. You know where to find the latest on KSLSports.com. Steve, enjoy Vegas. Thanks so much.
Appreciate you guys. Have a good one.
Steve Bartle. He's on it.
He is.
He's dialed in. After this game ends on Wednesday, and it's interesting, a lot of interesting stuff there. The push to keep Jason Beck at Utah is interesting. Now, most of you are like laughing. There's no way.
Sure.
How are they going to keep him from going to Michigan? I don't know. This is an interesting test for Utah football.
Correct.
Can they play with the big boys? And when I talk about playing with the big boys, I'm talking about money. We heard about this new deal.
Yeah.
This is the first test of this. How are you going to retain coaches where the big names come calling? Kyle Whittingham knows what he wants. He's got every resource and every dollar he needs at Michigan to come chase these guys that he has great relationships with. At least we assume that much.
Yeah.
Guys he trusts at the very least. He wants them to come to Ann Arbor. How do you say no to an opportunity to be a coordinator at Michigan or an assistant coach at Michigan?
Well, it seems like you're going to obviously have to pony up money, first off.
Clearly.
To keep guys in place. And I think you got to sell guys on the fact, no, keep building where you're at. Like, you've established yourself in the case of a Jay Hill and Provo. You've had 3 years of pretty darn good success on defense. And what Jason Beck has showed in just the one season he did at Utah Well, I remember when he came over from Mexico, they ran the ball like they did at Utah, New Mexico. But the question was, okay, that's the G6 level. Can it come up to the P4 level? Well, yeah. Not only did it do that, it was the second best rushing offense in the entire country.
Right.
So it showed that, yeah, it's replicable and it's successful. And I think the continuity factor, you're just trying to sell them like, hey, you got a good thing going here. Let's keep it rolling.
Those coaching decisions could happen in the next 48 hours. The portal opens Friday. Buckle up, Utah fans. Buckle up, college football fans.
Yeah.
This next week is going to be